Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of 9/11 Freefall. I am the host, Andy Steele, and this is going to be an exciting one tonight. We have a guest that a lot of people have been wanting to see for a very long time. He's back with us tonight on 9/11 Freefall, and so I'm not even going to waste a lot of time building it up. I'm sure you have read the description, the bulletin going out about this. We're going to be joined by the founder of AE 9/11 Truth, Richard Gage, AIA. He's now independent at richardgage911.org. To give him the formal introduction, he's an architect of 30 years from the San Francisco Bay Area, a member of the American Institute of Architects, and the founder of AE 9/11 Truth. His new organization, you can see right behind me, I think it's mentioned somewhere, is richardgage911.org. During his architectural career, he's worked on most types of building construction, including numerous fireproof steel frame buildings, most recently a $400 million mixed-use urban project with 1.2 million square feet of retail, 320,000 square feet of mid-rise office space and parking structure, altogether consisting of about 1,200 tons of steel framing. So there's a lot of materials going into that project. And he is going to be joined by his wife, Gail Gage, who works with him at Richard Gage 911, right alongside, doing the work that he continues to do, sharing the 9/11 evidence, pushing for a new 9/11 investigation. And we are going to be learning more about her tonight as well. So let's go ahead and bring them on in. Richard and Gail, welcome to 9/11 Freefall.
Thank you.
Hey.
Andy. Hey,
Thanks,
everybody.
Andy. Hi, everyone. Great to be here.
Yes.
Well, it's great to have you back here on the show, Richard and Gail. And I know you guys are doing amazing work over at your organization. We're going to be getting into that tonight and playing some clips from your new film series that I think everybody should be watching, Crime Scene to Courtroom. Now, Richard, you haven't been with AE in the last couple of years, and we wanted to open tonight by briefly talking about that. So I'm basically just going to hand it over to you. The show is all of yours, so take it away.
Yes, my goodness. Well, about 3 years ago, we had a thriving organization, and we still do at AE 9/11 Truth. It's just that I'm personally thriving in a different way because I felt the need to branch out and cover the other conspiracies that have been happening over the last 3 years. COVID in particular, with its engineered disease and the engineered solution for that disease. I had gone to some conferences like the Red Pill Expo, and by God, Andy, I just couldn't stop talking about this. I kept telling myself, don't say that, don't say that. Because, we have 3,600 architects and engineers. And what petition did they sign? The one about 9/11 and the World Trade Center. They did not sign a petition for the exposure and reinvestigation of COVID. And later, the reinvestigation of Gaza, which I've been calling for also. So this became a point of contention and some difficult discussions on the board. And eventually, I was not yielding, though I probably should have, because I couldn't quite see that my divergence and need to focus was actually more of a problem than I thought. So I was let go, as they say nicely. And, it turned out to be the best thing for the 9/11 Truth movement, for AE 9/11 Truth, and for our new organization, Richard Gage 9/11, in which Gail and I started up as fast and as furiously as we could, not knowing what to do with myself. I mean, really, I've been with AE 9/11 Truth, having founded it, for over 18 years. And I had some serious challenges with my own identity. Who am I? Without AE 9/11 Truth, can I make it? Will anybody listen to me without the branding and backing and power of architects and engineers for 9/11 Truth? Well, I found out that as we worked hard to create a new branding, you can see we've got a new logo with the 3 buildings behind me, which we've adopted from our webinar series, 9/11 An Architect's Guide, with the Twin Towers in Building 7. Rather powerful. And Gail and I we put together a website that I'll share with you. We put together podcasts. Gail, tell everybody about all the podcasts we have been doing.
Yes, well, we started out with Richard Gage 9/11 Unleashed, right when we first went solo doing Richard Gage 9/11.
That's called turning lemons into lemonade. Unleashed
yes,
became a positive thing, not a negative thing. Go ahead.
It was. And it gave you particularly a really good platform to be able to just share your heart. And then we were able to start interviewing people, and oh my gosh, it really took off. There seemed to be such a positive response from all of our supporters and all those who had been following you for years. And so, yeah, it was like a new adventure, and getting to know the guests that we interviewed and their stories and
85 of them all together. We were doing 2 a week. God, that was a lot of work.
It was like 4 hours for each one, from the very beginning of setup until the final, getting it all up on social media and all that. So yeah, it did take off, and then we had to slow down a little bit once we started getting into crime scene to courtroom, 9/11 crime scene to courtroom. But yeah, it was awesome. I really look forward to when we finally can slow down and maybe start doing some more podcasts, which will happen once we get all the episodes of crime scene to courtroom done.
The cool thing about it is that now the powers that be have to deal with 2 powerhouses, at least AE 9/11 Truth, which Andy helped me to build into a powerhouse. You've been with AE, what, 15
Long
years?
Time.
It's
2009.
9, yeah.
I volunteered, yeah.
About 15 years. And Andy and I worked so closely together, and he backed me up on all of the webinars that we were doing, 9/11 An Architect's Guide. You can still see all of this information on AE 9/11 Truth. And they are proud of the heritage. It's not like, there's any shame or regret or revenge or resentment on anybody's side. It was difficult at first, right? But because all of a sudden it feels like I'm in competition, right, Andy? It's like, okay, I got to one up AE, now, but it settled into something much more reasonable, rational, and even cooperative. Over the years, we have, for instance, AE 9/11 Truth had shut down the store. So we picked that part of it up. And now we have most of the materials from AE 9/11 Truth on our store, the ones that I appear in and the ones that I don't appear in. Dylan Avery from Loose Change 9/11 fame has made some incredible documentaries. And so now we're coming at him, Andy, like a double-barreled shotgun. I'm focusing with Gail on the waking up of the public, because I have a way with presenting this evidence for explosive controlled demolition that, I've given 1,000 presentations over 18 years in 24 countries and over 100 American cities. And Gail and I have traveled. Tell us about the travels, Gail, and how we operate when we travel.
Well, I have not done very much traveling in my life at all until I met you. I think I'd flown maybe 3 times. So believe it or not, we've gone to so many places now, I can hardly even keep track. So we've been, well, probably the furthest for me has been the Anarchapulco conference, which is in Acapulco, Mexico. And that was amazing. We've been there twice now. And we've been clear across the country to Florida several times, probably quite a few times now, for conferences and in-house studio there with Patrick Bet-David and Valuetainment. Boy, we've kind of been to all 4 corners of the United States and
everywhere in between too. It's been a
Yeah.
12.5 speaking engagements in the last 3 years.
Yeah, a lot.
And interviews. Tell them about the interviews and how you help with that.
Well, so when someone reaches out for an interview, whether it's direct email or on social media, a lot of these show hosts, they reach out on X in a DM. And so I start the ball rolling by thanking them for reaching out, and then correspond with them to get a date and a time settled. And then they get all the interview stuff, which is his intro, bio, photo, logos, all that good stuff, and interview request form, excuse me, that they fill out that gives us really important information. And then there's all the pre-interview correspondence back and forth. And then, of course, the interview. And then right after that, Richard and I both reach out to ask the host if they can refer us to any other show hosts.
And they always seem to be excited to say, "Oh, sure, yeah, I know such and such and such and such."
Yes, they do.
So, how many interviews have we done?
Gosh, you asked me to find out, and I neglected to do that. It's a lot.
Well, it's almost 100 every
Yeah.
year. It's more than 200 since we've been on our own, reaching tens of millions of people. I don't know. It's not. I don't think it's not necessarily me. I just think the timing now in the last year, particularly last couple of years, though, something's going on out there. Andy, have you been finding this out too? There's a resurgence of the 9/11 truth movement that feels really good to us. How about you?
It's amazing because there are people out there. I mean, Tucker Carlson used to be part of the opposition back in the early days of 9/11 truth. And now it seems like he is more open to this. He has talked about Building 7. You have people like Candace Owens out there speaking about 9/11, and more prominent people. And we had a lot of these prominent people who were at our event this year, the 24th hour. We had Dr. Jill Stein, the Green Party presidential candidate, who's been pretty open about calling for a new investigation in years past. We had Jimmy Dore come on the program, people like Alex Stein. So more and more prominent people are speaking out because I think it is safer now than when we got started back in the day, Richard. It's a lot safer. A lot of time has passed, and a lot of things have happened in our society. Some of the things that you were highlighting over at Richard Gage 911 that have really opened people's eyes. And I think that's a lot different than back in 2008, 2009, where internet was more free. Something like AE 9/11 Truth could build a following a little bit easier on the internet. But overall, society was still very blind to the realities of our government and our world. So yes, this is working in our favor. And of course, this thing that is happening with Curt Weldon right now has brought a lot of people together. Jeff Long, our director of marketing, calls it the Coalition of the Weldon. Entire conference of 9/11 truth groups.
I love it.
But no, we're seeing a lot of great things happen in this movement now. And I think the way things have turned out have been fortuitous for the cause, which is really at the heart of what we are doing, what all of this is really about. So yes, it's sort of like a lizard, I think certain lizards, you cut off their arm, they grow another one. And in this case, it's like, you cut off the head, but then it just grew another body. Now you got 2 lizards that you're dealing with. So
right on.
I think this is very good. I want to play this because you showed this to me the other day when we were talking, and I thought you had a really cool intro for your podcast. So let's just go ahead and play that for the audience for a moment.
Gail and I.
So
There
that
it
is
is.
very neat. And you were going to say something, and I'm sorry you got cut off because I hit the play button. But and I'm going to let you say that. But it almost looks like architectural blueprints or something on there, even though they're not blue. It's the black and the red. But it's just laying out the blueprint of your entire plan for taking on this issue, other issues going on with the the various topics that you have covered. But talk about that, and also people who might just be catching up to all of this, where can they go to watch the podcast that you've done so far?
Yes, there's 85 of them right here on the website. In fact, if you'd like, well, I'll share my screen and just show
Sure.
people what we have been up to here. And let's maximize. How does that look?
Beautiful.
All right. So when well, first of all, we'll start about 3 years ago. We said, well, we got to do something, really cool. Now we can branch off. We can do other things, right? For instance, this issue of the Pentagon, the 9/11 truth movement has been so fractured by the Pentagon. So Gail and I said, hey, let's bring all of these speakers together in one place and give a conference, 9/11 Con, the Pentagon. And we did this in 2022. And we invited those who thought no plane hit the Pentagon, those who thought a plane hit the Pentagon, those who thought a missile hit the Pentagon, those who thought there were just explosions with a plane that blew up over the heliport. And so we invited Thierry Masson, Barbara Honegger, Craig McKee, Adam Ruff, David Chandler, Wayne Costi. They all had 2 hours plus questions from the audience. It was 12 hours long. Gail, what's your recollection of that event?
Wow, it was amazing. It was, and it went by so quickly. The build up to it with all the work involved, it was so much work, but it was so amazing and fun. And everybody that took part in it, everybody was very structured, organized. Everybody did a great job of presenting their case and their information. And it seemed like a lot of the viewers really appreciated being able to have all of the different views, all the different perspectives and theories behind the Pentagon brought out completely out in the open, because I think there was a lot of confusion on what do people believe, and what's the basis of that. And so, yeah, I don't think anything like that's ever been done before with the Pentagon. And I think it was really enriching for the 9/11 truth movement, and informational, because so many people like myself never really had an understanding about it and the different perspectives or theories. So I loved it. And the app that we used, that program that we used for it, where it was like a virtual conference, and we had the little rooms,
communicate with each other.
Yeah, and we could go into little different chat rooms, and you could take part in the different chats. And
so we were going to do one on the Shanksville issue also, and bring together, but there's not enough speakers, if you will, or people invested. Well, there's a couple that I'm aware of, but nothing like the array of guests that we brought together for the Pentagon. What were you going to say, Andy?
No, yeah, I watched that event, the 12-hour event, and at different times, because 12 hours is a long time. But
it was.
I can't imagine how you did it. I struggle with like a live event for like 4 hours sitting in one place. I got a little bit of ADD going on, but no, a lot of different perspectives brought to it, and certainly there are questions about Shanksville, some things that I have learned kind of secretly behind the sscenes from people that were involved in Rome, New York, and stuff. Certainly, every aspect of September 11th should be looked at. I mean, to believe that, they brought down the towers in New York on controlled demolitions, but the rest of it is all legit. It's just fine. No, questioning the towers, bringing that truth out will open up the entire event. All the questions that we have about the other sites, about the intelligence failures, all of that stuff. So while we here at AE stay focused on the controlled demolitions, I'm not saying guests on our shows don't go off on other topics or tangents, but overall the mission at AE is on these 3 buildings that fell, exposing that, and Richard still talks about that too himself, but exposing that will unearth everything that is coming out about, September 11th. And that has been the strategy for years. But Richard is actually diving into these topics, and he's getting it from both sides too. It's not just a biased argument for one side or the other. We've got people who are very passionate about the Pentagon in this movement, either, whether the plane hit or it didn't. I don't get involved in that. I ask, just release the video shots. There were tons of videos there, something obviously they don't want us to see happen. But we don't get into that here at AE, but it's good that this dialogue continues to happen in the 9/11 Truth movement, and you are facilitating that.
Yeah, thank you. We've also over a year ago got very interested in this Gaza, this invasion by Hamas into Israel. It has so many of the key parallels used in 9/11 in foreknowledge of the event, massive foreknowledge, military stand down, and intelligence failures on a massive scale, a revenge attack planned with no investigation, use of crisis actors, and the whole thing just really stinks. And for those of you who haven't seen this, this is something we were also able to do, being unleashed from our 3,600 architects and engineers who signed the petition. Now we can still say, hey, like most all of our presentations are on the subject of the World Trade Center evidence, but it's just so refreshing to be able to show people how these parallels are incredible, not only with the Gaza and the COVID problems that we've been facing, but also we're now primed. We're cross-pollinating the truth movements. There's a health and freedom movement in this country that's even more powerful than the 9/11 truth movement. So we're bringing 9/11 truth to that group of people. And many doctors have asked us to speak on 9/11 because they don't know. And in the 9/11 truth movement, many of us don't know still that COVID was a false flag operation. And if you're wondering what the evidence is for, we're certainly not going to be able to go into that today. But we do go into it. In fact, we've been asked at the Advanced Medicine Conference to present the parallels between 9/11 and COVID. This is Dr. Rashid Battar's group in San Antonio, with several hundred people there. So we've contributed to the COVID 1911. Get it? 1911. No. And so that effort over at oh dear, I forgot her name. A wonderful group that's responsible for this. We held a memorial for David Ray Griffin, who are all of our heroes in the 9/11 truth movement. 14 books on the subject of 9/11, an incredible array of work with he and Elizabeth Woodworth together. We owe a huge debt of gratitude to the grandfather of the 9/11 truth movement. And he featured in our 9/11 Truth Film Festival that Gail and I featured as well. And Gail mentioned Anarchapulco, so here we are in Mexico learning. We went on the Patrick Bet David podcast, and that drew tens of thousands of people to 9/11 Truth. So that was exciting, and I'm just so grateful that we have AE 9/11 Truth focused on what you guys need to be focused on, which is reaching out to the engineers. For those of you who've been living in a cave, the incredible structural engineers over at AE have been focused and given 40 presentations now to the groups of the American Society of Civil Engineers, to the great consternation of the leadership of the ASCE who has tried to shut down these presentations. But Roland is just relentless. And John Schuler and the rest of your engineers, they're so clear and concise, and they pull the rug completely out from underneath NIST, the National Institute of Standards and Technology. And I rely on their wisdom and presentations routinely over here. And so do the 3,600 architects and engineers now demanding a new investigation. And so we've also, I mentioned the store, we have all of the great DVDs from AE 9/11 Truth, and we've taken some of that information and branded it also in the forms of brochures that you can download and print for free from the store. And all of these old classic DVDs dating back 15 or more years in the 9/11 Truth movement, including the new ones by Dylan Avery and Calling Out Bravo 7, one of the latest ones by Paul Cayley used in our effort, which Curt Weldon, former congressman you mentioned, he saw this. In fact, we went to a major conference at the National Fire Protection Association, and somehow we roped Raul Angulo into this effort. And he had a booth with us, an evidence booth, and we showed hundreds and hundreds of fire protection professionals the evidence for Building 7's controlled demolition. And all of them just look at it and they go, "Oh my God, of course. Yeah, that's a controlled demolition." And they haven't even seen the evidence of molten iron and all the rest of it. But just looking at the building coming down is just so shocking to so many people. Mm-hmm. Well, we did this 3 years in a row, starting in Boston, and then Las Vegas, and then finally Orlando. And in Orlando, Captain Raul Angulo was invited to write an article, 8,000 pages, in the International Fire Safety Journal. And in that article, he was relentless because, he's warmed up to this idea. Eric Lawyer of Firefighters for 9/11 Truth brought him on board. And then he's just caught on fire. And so he's even got some of the evidence for controlled demolition in there just to kind of wake up the firefighting community. And he did, because a fire chief, who's a former congressman, Curt Weldon, you mentioned, is now a hero of ours in the 9/11 Truth movement. Because what did he do? He saw this article, and then he said, "Look, Captain Angulo of the Seattle Fire Department, what you need to do is gather the engineers, the architects, the scientists together and make a document, just 2 pages." It turned out to be 8 pages, but the document was created. I got to show you this document, Andy. Here's Andy's website. And if you go to the news section, you can see this document right here. And believe it or not, members of the 9/11 Truth movement who did not get along, many of them were brought together by Angulo and roped. It's like dad bringing kids, sibling rivalry, all together. And well, you're going to get a spanking if you don't work together. And so we did. And this was proved to be a great healing in the 9/11 Truth movement. And this document was created, and it was signed by all of these wonderful characters. Dare I name them? And you can read this document. It's 9 pages and put together beautifully, graphically by Jeff Long, the marketing director for AE 9/11 Truth. AE has taken the lead on this project, remarkably so. And in this document, we have all of the evidence for the engineering, structural engineering, why NIST theory can't possibly be true. We have all of the evidence for the controlled demolition and the extreme heat and the explosive demolition, not only 7, but of the, can you see that, Andy? The PDF?
Yeah, that's the cover right there.
And there's the authors that are listed here: Captain Raul Angulo, who compiled all of this, Roland Engel, a structural engineer, civil engineer, and Dr. Leroy Halsey, of course, of the famous University of Alaska report that just pulled the rug out from underneath NIST. Ourselves, David Chandler has a whole section on free fall. For those of you who've never heard of free fall, it's as fast as a bowling ball falling out of the sky. That means in building 7, not one of those 80 columns, 81 or 82, depending on how you count them, gave any resistance. And this is so beautifully shown in here by the structural engineers and the scientists and firefighters contributing, also saying, hey, look, we go routinely into high-rise buildings and put out these fires. We don't worry about the building coming down on us. But now, are we supposed to worry? Because for the first time ever, a steel frame, fire protected type 1 skyscraper, which most all of them are, has fallen due to what? Normal office fires, according to NIST. So they pull the rug out from underneath NIST from the firefighting perspective. Chris Joya, Eric Lawyer, and Paul Cayley. It's an extraordinary effort, along with Tony Robbins. It's a call for a new independent presidential investigation into the 9/11 World Trade Center destruction. We have never come together and put together a document, much less one like this. It's a miracle document.
It was a lot of work. A lot of work.
Yeah,
a lot of people.
And he's
a lot of work at the last
minute
minute at AE too, trying to put all that together with all the edits. And I know Sandra Laratanda had to edit it and take in all of these very opinionated people's suggestions and put it into one narrative.
Yeah, she spent like 60 hours on this project.
I don't envy the job. I don't envy that job.
And Jean Laratanda was helping all the way from the beginning. Andy was a key point of contact with Curt Weldon. You interviewed him, and what did he say in that interview about all? He said
a lot of stuff. I mean, he's talking about this and talking about the history that he's had with the deep state, his daughter being raided, his questions about 9/11, the stonewalling, and the issues with Abel Danger and Tony Schaefer. I mean, our audience can, of course, watch that in our archives over at the YouTube channel for AE 9/11 Truth, but it was a powerful, very impressive interview, and I know Curt Weldon is all in, and he actually said this on Jimmy Dore, not on my show, but that bin Laden was moved to the Baluchistan region in Iran in the aftermath of September 11th. So they have our soldiers looking for bin Laden in Afghanistan, and in the meantime, he's been moved through backdoor deals and everything. This is a national scandal just by itself, forgetting about controlled demolition for just a moment. This by itself justifies a new investigation into the entire event. So a lot is going to come out as a result of these efforts. We just got to keep on pushing for this presidential commission to happen.
Oh, yes. This is just a starting point. And so all of us will be key players in this new 9/11 this new presidential commission on 9/11. And we're looking forward to it. We're not going to stand by, are we, Andy, and wait for Pete Hegseth, Tulsi Gabbard, and J.D. Vance, who Curt Weldon is bringing this to their attention. He knows Susie Wiles personally, Pete Hegseth personally. He's talked to them about this, and he's asked us to bring it forth. And what happened since then? I'll give you 3 guesses, you guys out there. Andy certainly knows. We have had a congressional oversight committee, James Comer, assign Representative Anna Paulina Luna to lead the congressional task force on the declassification. Why is that important? Because she included very specifically 9/11 in the list, which includes JFK, MLK, RFK, Epstein, COVID, etc. But 9/11, she took on specific questions about 9/11 in her official press conference in Congress with flags and everything behind her, calling for a new investigation in 9/11. Now, we have never had that happen. there's been people who have said, well, she's compromised. She has foreign influence. Hey, the genie is out of the bottle. Wouldn't you agree, Andy?
Well, and I want to address that because every time that there's some kind of positive development, there's a lot of negative Nancy's out there, and I'm not criticizing them. I can understand how you get there, but they're already looking for a problem and saying, "Oh, this is just going to be a whitewash, just like the original 9/11 commission was." And we're going to follow it, and we're going to be honest about our reporting on it, but that doesn't mean you don't get excited about changes to the climate of surrounding this issue. Like if this ends up going in a direction that we don't like, it's not like we can't call it out in the future, but we have to be positive, because if we're negative all of the time, all we're going to do is burn ourselves out. Right. And so just the fact that Congress feels this need to have this commission, that we have a president who is open to these types of things. And I understand the political situation out there. I know there are people on the left who don't like Trump, but you should stand for transparency and accountability from your government, no matter who it is coming from. Had Kamala Harris won the presidency, and for whatever reason, even though probably very unlikely, that she had been open to a new 9/11 investigation, we would be going down there and presenting this evidence the same way. That is what the goal is, not for some particular ideology or political party. It is for the truth and justice for those nearly 3,000 people who died on September 11th. So we have to be positive, and we have to celebrate the advancements that we have made. Again, yeah. When did you start AE? Back in 2007 or 8? I can't ever remember, but I came in.
Well, 7.
Okay.
No, I woke up, if you will, in 2006, and then 2007 we started AE.
Okay, so back then, and I woke up in 2006, so I didn't join AE until like 2009, but I was kind of acting independently. And man, was the environment so different back then. It was a completely different world, and the thought that we could actually have any kind of action whatsoever surrounding this just seemed like such an impossibility. In fact, when the C-SPAN campaign started, Richard, remember that when we were calling C-SPAN every single day?
Yes, thank you, Andy. He organized how many people called in under your incredible leadership with that?
I don't even know. I didn't count, but it went on for a year and a half practically every day. But the idea that like, oh, maybe they'll invite Richard on to talk was a joke. It was like something what somebody would say as a joke.
They'll never do that.
That'll never do that. But if you believe in yourself and you keep on pushing, and you're going to get some kind of results. So we should celebrate those things and not be trying to find the fault with everything until there's an actual reason to find fault with it, until some kind of lack of justice. I noticed this with Pam Bondi when she was requesting the Epstein files, and then she got like $200 or 200 pages of redacted pages.
Yep.
And people are immediately jumping on her saying, oh, my God, see, this is all going to be compromised. It's all fake. Or then like practically the next day, she gives a hard deadline, fires the head special agent at the FBI office. And now they got a truckload of the files. So you got to give people a little bit of time. You got to be realistic about the parameters that they're working with. But let's be positive in this world. We have come a long way, baby, out there. And Richard knows this as well as I do, because we've seen a lot of change in our time. Isn't that right?
That's right. And look what happened with that C-SPAN, the results of that. Not only did we get on for 45 minutes presenting the evidence, our best evidence, but it turned out to become the most watched video on their entire website of C-SPAN or Washington Journal.
Not even Trump beats you. Not even Trump beats you on there.
Or Obama.
Or Obama.
It got over 1 million views, Andy.
I know it. I check on it every once in a while. I go there to see. It's like a video game, right? When you get the high score back in the 80s on Pac-Man and your initials are there at the top of the listing, and you go back to the mall like every couple of months to see if anyone's knocked you out. And I do this. It's like our video game record there on the C-SPAN website. And there's Richard still at the top, above President Trump, above President Obama, any other world events. There's Richard sitting on top. And that's very exciting for me, even still to this day.
And this is another exciting project that you had a huge hand in, the Scientific Integrity Act, because You found out when you submitted a FOIA, not a FOIA request, but a challenge to the response to the FOIA request. I think
it was a request for correction. It was a request for correction, and NIST basically just said they stood by their report without really offering any substance as to why. We took them to court. It went through several different levels, and ultimately the court ruled that federal agency reports, provided they meet statutory requirements, that means that unless Congress specifically says in the legislation that the report has to be accurate. That's like your teacher has to tell you that the answers have to be correct in order for you to get an A on your homework.
Yeah.
That unless they specifically say that, they can basically put anything in these reports that they want. We tried to take this to Supreme Court. Supreme Court refused to hear it. So that's the buildup. Richard, talk about the Scientific Integrity Act.
Yeah, well, this is another one of those. We throw a lot of stuff against the wall. The Bobby McIlvaine Act is another perfect example of an excellent piece of legislation modeled after a previous investigation that calls upon Congress to investigate what really happened at the World Trade Center. Based on one example, the tragic loss of Bobby McIlvaine in the North Tower, who was experienced an explosion in the lobby that blew him back and killed him. And his father has been for 24 years calling for a new investigation. And the Bobby McIlvaine Act is ready to go. We need to get this into the hands of, as soon as their investigation gets underway, and get that enacted by Congress. And this is a committee. The House Oversight Committee is huge. It's a big deal in Congress, and it can go forward, as can the Scientific Integrity Act, which requires truth in scientific reports coming out and through the government. So yeah, there's no end of the incredible work here that AE has continued to do relentlessly, even without me at the leadership there. See, they don't need me. And we're doing just fine. Also, we're just pumping out all kinds of new stuff, as you've been seeing. In fact, I'm with Gail and I, we have not only done 85 different podcasts, but we're pounding on the wall of 9/11. Some people miss the 9/11 on the wall created by Larry here, but you can see it. And we're not stopping. We're drilling deep. As Trump says, drill, baby, drill. Well, we're drilling on you, Trump. We're going to hold your feet to the fire. We're going to have you drilling for truth, not only with Epstein and COVID origins and JFK, but with 9/11. And so we're gathering the whole 9/11 truth movement together to make this happen. One of the things people can do is activate. You can, how many people will see you depending on, where you go, if you go out at all, take a hat with you. Now we're declassifying 9/11. This is like timely stuff given the announcement of this new committee. So we got MAGA red, and so you can infiltrate.
Be careful
MAGA.
wearing that in the deep cities, but
you wear the black one in the deep city. You wear the red one to your Trump events. And it's really I just
don't want to get anyone hurt. But
no,
I want to make sure that we talk about this because you've got a film series, and I want to give it its proper time here. It is called Crime Scene to Courtroom, and I got the trailer that I want to play for the audience. But Richard, set it up for him.
Yes, well, 3 years ago, Mick Harrison of the Lawyers Committee for 9/11 Inquiry and I and Gail and the Lawyers Committee, and the entire Lawyers Committee got together and said, hey, we got 60 exhibits that have already been submitted to the U.S. Attorney in Southern District of New York. And we've got to bring those alive. So Mick and I were filmed over over a year in Washington, D.C., in the boardroom in which we brought our virtual stand-in grand jurors, and we presented this evidence to them. And after writing up, it took like, I don't know, 20, 30 hours of stuff, evidence that we presented, a couple of dozen experts, and we filmed this whole thing. And now we're producing episodes. There'll be about a dozen of them, and each about an hour. And we have 2 of them done. We've got a trailer to show you.
Yeah, let's go ahead and play that, folks. This is going to be about 2 minutes long.
No matter how improbable the conclusion may appear, when you've eliminated the impossible, whatever remains, however improbable, must be the truth.
We're bringing alive in the film the 60 exhibits of the 9/11 WTC evidence contained in the Lawyers Committee grand jury petition that have already been submitted to the U.S. Attorney in Manhattan to present to a special criminal jury.
This historic investigation is ongoing, and there's a role for you in it. Yes, you can help us bring the real perpetrators to justice.
Through this film series, we're bringing together 24 experts in their fields.
They ignored any scenario involving incendiaries.
Demolition work, you're going to set charges on each floor.
The building could not have been brought down by office fires.
In other words, all of the interior columns over 8 stories came down. We're basically lost at once.
I could make out what looked like from a science fiction movie, molten lava, okay?
And he paused and said, that'll be coming down around 5 o'clock.
We'll be filming these evidence presentations not only for our filings with the grand jury, also as presentations to each of you.
We're inviting you to serve as virtual grand juror during each episode.
Well, there you go, folks. Go ahead.
And that gives you a feel for what it is that is possible here. As we roll out each episode, there are 2 episodes already out. The first one is an introduction to the public about what we're going to be doing in this series. You can see that at our website, richardgage911.org. There's a whole website for the film, though. It's 911c2c.org. 911 crime scene to courtroom. And so the second episode is also out for you to watch. We got a trailer for that too, Andy, if you want to show it.
Sure. Well, what we're going to do, because it's for the service that I'm using, it's a little long, so to play it during the show. So we're going to play it out at the end of the show, and people will have it fresh in their minds, and they'll have the website there to be able to go to after they are done watching 9/11 Freefall, of course. But Richard, no, this is amazing work that you are doing, and I saw the trailers for the show Crime Scene to Courtroom. Looks like very impressive work. So you have been very active, very busy, working for the 9/11 Truth Movement to get the word out, and I think it's because of the combined efforts of everybody. It's sort of like a 9/11 Avengers thing going on, especially now as everybody working together here.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be all for the better. And with this Curt Weldon thing and this effort going on to try to get the president to do this presidential commission, this is the best opportunity that we have ever had. And I don't say that lightly. I try not to give people false hope, but it is the best opportunity. So we're going to throw everything we have at it. I know you are, right?
Everything. And Gail, you still in the game, Gail, for how long?
Yes, I'm in there for the whole entire trip. Yeah.
Now, Gail, I want to know this because were you awake to 9/11 and all of this stuff before you met Richard, or has this been just a mind-blowing experience that you got married with?
Well, unfortunately, I didn't think anything about when 9/11 originally.
Here.
Am I still there?
Okay,
Hello?
there you go. Please continue. You're back.
So unfortunately, I didn't suspect anything when 9/11 happened. I wish that I had. I did watch it on the news. I had small children at the time, so that's kind of my excuse. I was preoccupied. So no, I didn't. I may have thought that it was odd that buildings could fall like that just from fires, but I didn't question it. And then it wasn't until I met Richard and found out what it is that he does. I didn't find that out until a couple weeks into our dating. But then I stalked him on Facebook and I found that he is really big into 9/11. But you know, what happened was then I started watching the videos and saw the side-by-side comparison with Building 7 and a controlled demolition. And that's really what did it for me. And I watched that and I'm like, I can't believe I didn't suspect something, at least go, whoa, that looks like those old buildings that they bring down, in Vegas. But so it didn't take much. And I am grateful. I was raised by a mother who was really awake about a lot of things. So I already kind of had the mindset of questioning the government and things like that. But yeah, it just blew me away. And it's amazing the cognitive dissonance that you see in people, like all the conferences and expos and places we've been and interacting with people, especially like at the Red Pill Expo, where it's not all about 9/11, we're just one aspect of it. And then we always have our booth, our Richard Gage 9/11 evidence booth. And so we have a lot of people coming by the booth, especially after Richard does his presentation. And it's just amazing how even at a truther conference, so to speak, like the Red Pill, the number of people who didn't even know there was a third building, they kind of were suspicious about the Twin Towers and the whole 9/11 thing, but they didn't know there was a third building that was not hit by a plane, So it just amazes me that after all these years, even with all the combined efforts of everybody in the 9/11 truth movement, that more people don't know. But yeah, so I definitely awake about it now. And I just am so excited right now, everything that's going on with Curt Weldon and even, like Tucker and the larger podcasters, news journalists that are questioning it openly, where that we didn't see that before. So yeah, very exciting times for 9/11 truth movement, but for all truth, really, for humanity.
So Gail was not awake to 9/11 until she met Richard, and then it was a few weeks after. Richard, maybe you can give me some advice on when to get into this, because I'm single and the thing is, it's my job, so I can't even be like, I'll get into it later. It's like they always ask you, "What do you do?" Well, I work for.
He told me he was an architect, and then I asked him a couple of weeks after we had first met each other. I asked him, well, do you have a Facebook page? And he's like, well, yeah, but it's really boring. So that was my cue to go check him out. And I could see
really boring.
Yeah. But
it didn't end up being boring, though. No, it's very exciting. And and we're right about this issue. And it's exciting to be a part of this tremendous cause. You were talking about how you've been able to travel to different places. And I've had some very unique experiences as a result of my 9/11 activism. And that is a commercial to the audience out there. Get involved, be involved, because you'll have some very cool experiences on top of being able to serve the cause of justice and truth for those people that died on that day. It's sort of like the Army uses this as a recruiting method to talk about, you'll have all these great experiences and you'll see the world, you join the Army. Well, join the 9/11 truth movement, because you'll be out there on the street and you'll see some interesting stuff and be some interesting places. We went to Congress years ago for the Bobby McIlvaine Act. Remember that, running around to all the different congressional office buildings?
Oh, yeah. We did that like every other year. We gave them our petition for so many thousands of architects and engineers. We gave them our booklet that we made, Beyond Misinformation, What Science Says About the World Trade Center 1, 2, and 7. We gave them the documentaries we made, 9/11 Explosive Evidence, in which we hosted 40 high-rise architects, structural engineers, metallurgists, chemists, physicists, controlled demolition experts, all laying out this evidence. We even had Jim Hines from Connecticut, who's still an active congressperson. We gave him a personal presentation. Were you there for that one, Andy? I think
we had to split up because we had so many supporters that
right.
set up things and I had to coordinate all of this because
Yep.
like you'll have a building way over there and then a building over there. And it's like, you have to make sure that somebody doesn't have to, arrive at their meeting out of breath because they're running from, across the whole plaza there. So while you were doing that, I was off with some other congressperson. I don't even remember all of the ones that we visited. We had other staff members who would take a supporter. There were so many of them that we had to assign one staff member to each meeting. We couldn't have it be like Andy and Richard or whatever, because we were stretched so thin covering all of these in those 2 or 3 days that we were down there in Washington, D.C. But it was very effective, and we got a lot of ground covered in that effort.
Yeah, and we're going to do that again. I think we're going back to D.C. Look what's happening. We've got the executive branch of the United States government calling for a complete release through an executive order of Trump for the JFK, MLK, and RFK files. And he's talked about releasing, he said he would, he promised, the 9/11 files as well, when asked live on news. And so we're going to be holding his feet to the fire for that executive order as well. But Anna Paulina Luna is not waiting for that. She didn't. She's been named the head of this task force on declassification of federal secrets. And as we mentioned, includes now 9/11. So we've got huge amounts of follow-up to do on the 25th anniversary of 9/11. It's been handed to us on a silver platter. And guess what, Andy, we're all going to have to work together again in Washington, D.C. To bring this paper that you have created. Where did it go? Over here to all of us have created, and AE 9/11 Truth took the lead on it to bring it to every member of this new task force for that Anna Paulina is calling for, and then we'll hit the executive branch also. I mean, as much as we can do. We can't march into the White House, I guess, but we're certainly going to try.
Well, we want to be invited first, so but
yeah.
But yes, we will definitely be doing more work revolving around this, and it's we're kind of taking orders from former Congressman Weldon as we go. We're going to be announcing a campaign next week, probably maybe within a day or so after this show airs, probably on Sunday. We usually release these. So please, supporters of AE 9/11 Truth, and even supporters of Richard's site and the people in between, pay attention to our emails for that action alert, because we're going to have you involved. Richard, we're coming to the end of the show here. I know that you don't need my help doing this. Please leave our audience with a message of hope. I know that you keep on going, and we have a lot of trials that come up and a lot of obstacles that we've overcome in our careers doing this. But leave our audience with a message of hope. Tell them why you are still in this fight and why they need to be as well.
I'm in the fight because I got real angry 18 years ago when I realized I had been deceived on a massive scale. I sought to prove David Ray Griffin, this elder theologian, wrong. I said, this can't be true. I mean, if this were true, as one person said, up would be, Dorothy Lorig said this, up would be down and down would be up, right? It's almost like, as Fran Sure, somebody told her, I wouldn't believe this even if it were true. It's like, I was in shock. And then I got angry because I'd been lied to by the media, the whole media, including Fox News, who I was watching more than other news. I mean, I was rooting for Colin Powell as he was making his incredible case for weapons of mass destruction against Saddam Hussein and ties to Osama bin Laden. I fell for it, Andy, hook, line, and sinker. And this was a horrible wake up. It's like being hit over the head by a 2x4. And guess what? At that time, there were no architects and engineers that were organized. So I had to pull myself together and say, what do I do about this? Well, I saw they had pilots for 9/11 Truth, lawyers for 9/11 Truth, scientists for 9/11 Truth. Where the hell are the architects and engineers for 9/11 truth? This was falling on my shoulders. And thank God people like you and others like Brian Good, one of my very first volunteers, came over to my house and along with the others from the Northern California 9/11 Truth Alliance, and people like Ken Jenkins and Jim Hoffman helped me to see what was real with all the evidence out there in the 9/11 truth movement. Some of it was, not so good. We're still fighting these false theories that get put into the mix to confuse things. But I said, okay, no, we got to stick with the scientific forensic evidence relative to 9/11 and coalesce it. And so all I did is take other people's research, put it together with your help and the help of others, a lot of others. We've been consistent over 18 years putting this together. And now, as I mentioned, we're a double-barreled shotgun. And especially with Gail at my side, I'm able to focus on reaching out and being a face out there. And Gail takes care of the behind the scenes stuff mostly, but now we've got her interviewing other people too with our new podcast. So no, we're not going to stop until we get a real investigation, an unimpeachable investigation, an investigation that is not corrupted or corruptible. And in fact, Curt Weldon, former fire chief, former congressman, he is incredibly outraged at the deception that the CIA has put forth. And now that he's aware of the scientific forensic evidence for the destruction of all three towers, he's on board with us completely. We're like one cohesive unit. We now have not only Glenn Corbett, the key fire protection engineer in the country, signed on to this document right here, but we have now Richard Rotan's, the deputy director of the Emergency Operations Center on the 23rd floor of World Trade Center 7, himself signed on to this document. We got to add him on there. This is huge. And because he went into building 7 and at about noon, and he said there were fires on other floors and it was hot and it was smoky, and he looked up and there were holes in the floors above him with columns dangling. There was an elevator cab blown out of its shaft 30 to 40 feet down the hallway. Imagine the explosions that went off inside that building. This is not damage on the exterior of the building. This is on the interior of the building. So these are explosions which Barry Jennings and Michael Hess heard plenty of. And so all of that evidence is in this 9-page document. And thank you, AE 9/11 Truth, for putting it out there. And by the way, everybody, AE 9/11 Truth needs your support to fight the censorship and to get this presidential commission on 9/11 going. So yes, please, everybody, click that donate button at AE 9/11 Truth and pick where on this ladder of giving you can make a stretch, because there's a $10,000 campaign here at stake. And if you want to be a part of the 9/11 Truth movement, this is the way to do it. And make a special note for Andy here. Andy, thank you for your hard work, because Andy's running along with the other board of directors. Andy does the day-to-day stuff there, along with his marketing director, Jeff Long, and others, and Kamal and Roland. They all pitch in and make this happen. They've had to do it without me, so I feel sorry for them. No, I don't. They're doing a fantastic job, but they need your support more than I do. So this is where you can show your vote of confidence in the architects and engineers for 9/11 Truth, which for 18 years has been steadfast in bringing the truth and hammering that wall of denial. Am I wrong, Andy?
You are not wrong. And Richard, thank you for founding the organization. And you talk about waking up. And I remember I woke up, I was a lone warrior for a few years. And then there was this little conference up in upstate New York, a couple hours away from me. And you were going to be speaking there. And I said, I should really cover that. I was a journalist, independent. And I thought, it's kind of it's a few hours away. Do I feel like driving up there? And it was one of those last minute decisions. I went up there, and you were up there putting out a call for volunteers for a very specific action on the anniversary. And I said, you know what? I could help them with that one thing. I could do one thing for this organization.
That's all we're asking, right, Andy?
I volunteered. And it's funny, I made that decision to go up there, and what a life-impacting decision that was, because it could have gone the other way. But I volunteered that day, and it changed my life. It changed so many other people's lives. So you provided this organization for people to do the work that they feel they need to do for the cause of justice. And that all started with you founding it. So thank you. Thank you for coming on Free Fall, Richard and Gail. And so what we're going to do, folks, I want everyone to see the second trailer. So we're going to play out the rest of the show with the trailer for episode 2 of Crime Scene to Courtroom. And Richard, say the website again where they can watch this.
Yes, this is 911c2c.org. 911 crime scene to courtroom.org will also get you there. 911 letter C, number 2, letter C.org.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Richard and Gail, for what you are doing, for coming on the show today. And we're going to play you out with that trailer. Have a great night, everyone.
Thank you, Andy.
Thanks, Andy. Thanks, guys.
Whoever unlawfully delivers, places, discharges, or detonates an explosive or other lethal device into, or against a place of public use with the intent to cause extensive destruction shall be punished as prescribed in subsection C of Title 18 of the U.S. Code. It should be noted that that particular crime and others at issue here do have the death penalty.
Building 7 should have been the most studied structural failure in history. But no, the 2008 final report on the collapse by NIST claims that normal office fires brought the building down. You'll see that they've omitted the most important witnesses and forensic evidence that was available to them.
We have a new kind of progressive collapse that we have discovered here, which is a fire-induced progressive collapse.
Ordinary office fires have never done it and cannot bring down a Type 1.
World Trade Center 7 was never investigated per the National Fire Prevention Association guidelines.
The federal agencies that were tasked with doing the investigation didn't follow these protocols at all. They ignored them.
And if their narrative is correct, that means we have to change the way we attack interior high-rise fires.
And as grand jurors, you have to ask yourself, why would an author of a government report misrepresent a basic fact?
Notification bell and slam the like button and subscribe. Thanks.